Rising prices have been soaring, further putting pressure on already strained households. This comes as South Africans are still trying to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, the rolling blackouts, interest rates hikes, high fuel prices, among others. Millions are going to bed hungry, with some reports suggesting that 1 in 10 South Africans go hungry daily. On this, we'll speak to Food for Life Africa Public Relations Officer Lisa Sukdev, who is joining us for this conversation. But before we start this conversation, let's take you back to a conversation that sparked this particular conversation that we're having right now, which was with one of the Soweto residents who were painting a picture of how an elderly lady also died from hunger right in the streets where they were.
The elderly are sickly. They need to take their medication. In the mornings, we need warm porridge, but we don't have the power. I can't take my medication. Right now, we have a death in our street. An elderly woman fell to her death because of hunger. She's getting buried tomorrow. Can we not be given empty promises?
Now and then, no
Let's speak to Lisa now. Lisa, thank you so much for your time this evening. Just listening to that and also going back to what Stats SA says. It says that the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic denied many South Africans their right to adequate food as enshrined in the Constitution. You look at where we find ourselves right now, the rising cost of living, and we often hear how tough things are through various statistics. But let's talk about the reality on the ground. How bad is it?
My friend, it's terrible. So if we look at what happened at the start of COVID, Food for Life Africa started serving nutritious meals to anybody that needed it. So in the last 2.5 years, we've served 8,750,000 plates of food. And I can tell you something, it is growing. So even before COVID, we had starving, hungry people. The World Health Organization did a survey in 2021 that said that there were more than 16.3 million South Africans living under the poverty line. And what that means very simply is that there are South Africans that do not have the income to have a basic meal every day. So I mean, we produce on... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Lisa, pardon me. Then listening to what you're saying, it means then that, you know, the issue of the quantity of food, you know, that is consumed rather, also rises from that, because as you say, people may not have money, which then means that they may be skipping meals when they look at the fact that they don't have money to be able to buy something to eat right now. What does this mean, and what does it do to the body?
So remember, without nutrition in your body, as a child, you cannot get an education, because even if you have a school to go to, you may have books, you may have infrastructure, but you don't have the mindset to actually get an education. That's the first thing. Secondly, many people may say, why keep giving a man a fish? Because many organizations like ours get told that you cannot keep giving people a fish. But on a hungry tummy that is absolutely starving, how do you then go out and find the courage and the determination to go out and look for work, or come up with the creative concepts to then become an entrepreneur? Because realistically speaking, the situation with poverty is not going to change if we as individuals do not come up with ideas on how to create an income.
I was looking at some of the work that you're doing and the statistics, you know, and as well as the food that you're providing. You're serving a plate that costs around 5 Rand a day, and some are thinking, what is 5 Rand? I mean, surely, you know, it's a difference between me going to a vending machine to get a packet of crisps, or, you know, someone else having something to eat. Looking at this particular cost of a plate, what would you say is the poverty line? How much are we talking here?
The poverty line, unfortunately, is the fact that there are not enough people out there that are able to look. I have to be absolutely honest. With Food for Life Africa, we've created the most efficient and most economical kitchen and procurement system. So there isn't other organizations that I'm aware of that are able to provide a nutritious plate of food at the price that we do. So at 5 Rand a plate, I don't know many people that are able to provide what we do. So my thinking behind all of this is, let's stop trying to, recreate the wheel. Here is an organization that is able to produce meals, a nutritious, delicious meal at 5 Rand a plate. We should be having government organizations or other NPOs that want to then replicate what it is that we're doing, come to us and say, hey guys, this is what we want to do. We are so happy to share all the IP that we have, the suppliers that we have, and the methods that we have formulated and then absolutely perfected to ensure that the end user gets what it is that they actually need.
So what is on this 5 Rand a plate? Because, someone is thinking tonight, as they're also trying to decide between, buying fuel or also deciding what to put on their plate tonight because things are so expensive. So you give me a plate for 5 Rand. What am I expecting to find?
So you can get sampan beans, you can get a biryani, there's a dal and a rice mixture that's made, there's a soy powder that's added to it. So with each plate that we produce, the body is given all the nutrients it requires for the day. So should you not get another plate of food or another meal for the day, your body has in fact gotten all the nutrients it requires for that day.
And I suppose then when we look at, the fact that there's issues even around malnutrition, there's issues around people not being able to get enough food. Let's think about the little ones now. The reality of stunting is heightened right now as we talk about the fact that some of them may not be able to get what their bodies adequately requires.
So I'm going to tell you very, very unequivocally that with the meals that we provide, and we provide to schools as well, and I'll give you a school that is in Durban that we've been providing a meal to the students 3 days a week. We've seen the pass rate of that school that started at 20% before we got involved with them increase to 90%. Just because the children are getting, their bodies are getting the nutrients that they require so their brains can develop and that they can then perform at the rate that is required by the school. So it's not just about providing a meal of any nature. It's about providing a nutritious meal that is inviting. And, another thing about Food for Life Africa is not just about giving any meal. When the meal is served, it is delicious, number one. Number two, it is nutritious. But number three, when it is served with dignity. So whether the child or the adult is receiving that meal, they receive it in a way that doesn't just feed their body, it also feeds their soul and their esteem. And that is what I want to encourage anybody that is doing something that we're doing in their sphere, to ensure that anybody that is receiving that meal receives it with great dignity.
And dignity is quite key, especially, when you look at the work that we do. Now, as we, round up our conversation, let's talk about also some of the solutions. The World Food Summit, for example, of 1996, defining food security as, existing when all people have access to sufficient, safe, nutritious food. This, of course, is to meet their dietary needs. And at the same time, food insecurity, it says it occurs when people's access to food is minimally adequate and they have trouble meeting their basic needs. We've spoken about all of this. What are some of the stumbling blocks you would say are there towards getting to a position where South Africa or even the continent does not have an issue of food security?
So I can tell you that within the confines of South Africa, and I don't want to speak for the rest of Africa, so within the confines of South Africa, we have enough food. It's a matter of organizations like ours that are completely dependent on donors because there's no government funding. There's been more than 44 million rand that we've invested in the last 2.5 years to ensure that the hungry people are fed. It's about getting the resources to the right organizations to get the food out. So, we have 300 volunteers within the organization. We have 12 kitchens that produce food daily, okay? And the greatest stumbling block, I think, is a misappropriation of resources or funds. If government or other corporates or people that have access to funding are able to connect with the right organizations that are ensuring that it gets to the people on the ground that actually need it, I think that that is critical to ensuring that we can create a hunger-free nation.
Lisa, you mentioned something so important, resources to the right organizations, and that, of course, is key. But thank you so much for your time this evening, really talking about a serious subject that requires urgent attention. That was Food for Africa Life Public Relations Officer Lisa Sukdev talking to us about the issues around food insecurity as the cost of living continues to soar.